All right. Hello, everybody. If you are seeing my screen, I would appreciate a shout out just to make sure we are good to go on the chat. So I'm kind of seeing that I'm connected, and I don't know if people are on. Looks like about a few people are on. All right. Well, I'm just going to assume that everything is good, and I'll be hearing back from you. The stream itself is a little bit delayed on some of the, on I think some of the streaming services, so it might be that you're just hearing this. So hello, Rodrigo, and let's see. Rodrigo, you can see everything okay and hear everything okay? Right. I guess we'll have to wait a few seconds for this to go through as well. All right. I think we should be okay. If somebody just typed in okay, we should be good to go. All right. So welcome back, everybody. So I think this is number 5 of the streams that we're doing, and this is where we left our model last time. I made a few minor tweaks, nothing really major, and we are ready to kind of proceed from here. So for all those of you that haven't been seeing the previous versions of what we've been doing, I'll just do a quick review of what we've been doing. So let me see if I can find the one here that had the actual, I think it's this one right here. So we started out with a, slow this out. We started out with a Z-sphere rig like this. Initially, really simple rig, and we replaced the connectors of the Z-spheres with just a simple rectangle, which is this one. So we just took this and replaced all the connectors of the Z-spheres with that, and then generated a mesh, and then kept on generating more Z-sphere meshes, and then worked out a gesture, generated a skin, started working on that skin a little bit more, tweaked the general overall shape some more, and did a Dynamesh here, or a ZRemesh, and no, this is the Dynamesh I think, and then this is the ZRemesh. So we kind of get some inside parts to use, and once we got done with that, we tried some colors and painting. Today we're going to do a lot more of look dev, and then we came up with something similar to this, and then we developed that into different pieces. Now this one over here is the ZSketch. We did this last time, and basically what we did is we had the Z-sphere rig, and we sketched on top of it using ZSketch, and from that we generated this mesh, and from that mesh we generated this part right here, which basically is kind of a wireframe of sorts, I guess, inside. And so once we start rendering this thing later on in Keyshot, we'll see how these are going to kind of make sense. So if we look at the model now, we always start out with a human being just to kind of get an idea of scale. So about this robot is going to be a little bit bigger than a human being, and also we were kind of exploring the fact that a human being could ride this robot. So if this robot or mech would actually be rescuing somebody, then this is where that person would be. And if this was a war machine, then this is where the pilot would be, etc. So we kind of came up with that idea initially, and we might explore that later on. And then we brought in some kit bash parts like this one over here and kind of tweaked it a little bit. This is, I'll turn transparency on so you can see inside, and ghosting on as well. So this is just an inside piece that we might or might not use. And then this is that piece that we talked about earlier, which was generated by the ZSketch. And notice here that I just basically adjusted the polygroups. So I just have one polygroup for this kind of outside part, and then a polygroup for the inside part. And after we did that, so we have that to work with as well. And then we came up with these little lungs over here, which I kind of adjusted a little bit, but we might need to tweak it some more, or maybe completely regenerate it, just fine because I think it's something that people find useful. And then we made these kit bash parts last time, so we made these and then connected them up. And maybe we'll make a few more today. And then we also got some other kit bash parts to put in here. This was another kit bash part. And scrolling on down here in the list. So then we kind of extruded that part. So from that one ZSketch that we had, what I did is I just took this inside part that connected everything together. So let me kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So here there's the skin, and what we did is we basically isolated this part right here, deleted the rest, and then we just Q-meshed it to give it some thickness, and we ended up with something like this. And then I just applied a little bit of inflate balloon to it, and it kind of has an interesting mechanical look. So this would be kind of a inside part skeleton of the mech, and then we separated out the knees. I think there's another piece separated out as well. Yeah, so these are the knees, and I think these are part of the legs, and we might use these or not. And then again, there's that part here that is the Dynamesh part, and then this is one that has all the different parts that we have. And then of course those are all separated out, so we're not really going to be using this one that has everything together. We're actually today going to just use up or use all the different pieces that we separated out. So the head, the neck, shoulders, upper arms, forearms, hands, chest plate upper, chest plate lower, and back lower. So this is, I think this is kind of inside. I don't even know if we're going to use this, but maybe in the back it'll make sense. And then we have the legs, and I haven't separated those out yet, but for now we'll keep it together. And then we have these cylinders that basically are indicators for us that tell us how this thing is going to rotate and bend. We have some cylinders which are basically hinge joints, and then we have the balls that are ball joints, and I think this is the Z-sphere model that we Z-sketched, and I don't really need this, I'm going to delete it. Because I have it in my kind of construction piece over there. And then this was a chest plate that we kind of developed a little bit to tertiary parts. I'll zoom in on it. And I don't know if I'm going to use this yet or not, but I just moved it here to the bottom just in case. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to the model itself. So let's say we start with this, and then I'm going to hide the one at the bottom because we're not going to use it just yet. Okay, so this is where we are with our model for all of you that are tuning in. And also I will want to take this opportunity to ask you if you have any questions. This would be a good time to ask, and then we can continue on. So I'll wait a few minutes for the video to catch up with the other streaming services, and then we'll continue if there are no questions. So please, if you have questions about anything so far, now is a good time to ask. All right, I'll wait a few more seconds here. Oh, we have a big crowd today. I'm just curious, how many of you are new to ZBrush? Like, how many people on the watching this are kind of beginners, and how many people are like super advanced users? It's always good to get an idea of what your level is initially. And also, while we're waiting for that, let me see if I can find a browser here and let you know that there is an announcement that was made. I don't know if you are aware of it, but let me see if I can find. So I'll just go to Pixelogic's homepage. Let's see if they're talking about it there. No, maybe ZBrush Central has it. But basically on March 5th, there is going to be an announcement about the next version of ZBrush, which I believe is 2019. So, I don't know. They don't have Well, they have some ZBrush Central images here. I mean, they have some ZBrush 2019 images here, but I don't know if they have the announcement. So let me see if I can find it here. It's probably in the, no, it's not in top row either. Where is it? Okay. Let me go back to ZBrush, pixelite.com, see if I can find it there. In the meantime, I see some of you are asking questions. I'll get to you in just 1 second here. Okay, Pixelogic ZBrush, here we go. And maybe it comes up over here. Nope, it does not. So just for all of you, tune in on March 5th at 12 Pacific Standard Time. And that's when the announcement's going to be made. And I'm super excited, like a lot of people, I think, to see what new amazing things are going to come out in ZBrush. And you know, they're always, every version has some amazing thing that comes up. So really kind of psyched to see what's going on. And it seems like on ZBrush Central, and I'll bring this over, they have some images that they're sharing, and this looks pretty amazing here. Looks like some really cool kind of sculpture. So I'm kind of wondering what this feature is. So hopefully we'll find out March 5th, so make sure to tune in. Okay, so to questions here, it looks like I'm not new to ZBrush, but I took some time off. There are so many features now. Yeah, Sparky, there are a lot of features, and you know, I think that the thing to do is just kind of use it every day for what you use it for, and then every once in a while just take some time and explore one new feature. Like take a feature and explore it for a week. Like if you haven't done Z-sketching, explore that for a week. If you haven't used, let's say, Spotlight, explore that for a week. And before you know it, I think you'll catch on. But yeah, there are a lot of features in ZBrush, and as I tell my students all the time, there's a lot of different ways to get to the same results. So whatever you're comfortable with, use that. Okay, all right, let's see, any other questions? I think for the most part everybody else is saying hi, so no other questions, so let's just move on. Okay, so here at this point we just need to start working more on the details. So we have the major shapes done. Oh, I should also mention that we did pose this thing too. So here we kind of thought that this same creature, or the same mech, would be a quadruped as well, and we basically tested it out here lying in a run pose. So here, if we kind of look at it like this, it can run as well as kind of stop. And then we also picked another pose for it. So these are all things that we're going to be doing once we're done with it. We're just going to pose the model to what we want it to be. So back to this, and let's take a look at what we're going to work on today. So what I want to do here is work on this internal skeleton part a little bit. So I'll go ahead and select it. And I'm going to isolate it so we can just look at it. So it looks like it's kind of busy, and I can probably separate this out into separate pieces. Now I don't know if this is all connected. It looks like it is. And so if I'm going to disconnect it, I have to figure out where that those disconnections are going to be. And you know, kind of break it out that way. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate it, so I have a kind of a clean copy of the one I started out with, so just in case I need to go back. And then I'm going to go here and again use the smooth brush with sculptress mode on to erase some parts. So here, I think I like the way the head looks, so here when I turn this on, this part here looks pretty interesting to me. So I'm going to keep all of this. And the neck looks really good too. I especially like this little detail over here, so I'm going to keep that as well. And then I'm going to turn off this piece. I don't need to really see it because I think it's obstructing what we're looking at. So let me select that one and hide it. And then go back to here. Okay, and then I'm looking at the back here, and this piece here looks pretty interesting. Maybe I can pull the shape out of it, see what happens. So I'm using the move brush just to kind of move this back, maybe create some sort of interesting scapula back here. But realistically, this is kind of going to be my scapula piece right here, this shoulder piece, and the reason why I'm doing that is because when it converts into a quadruped, then this is going to kind of lay down this way. So this is kind of, the scapula could be both of these combined, and then once this turns over, then this will come on top of this. Somehow this will sink in and come on top of that part, and the scapula will work that way. Alright, so now let's go back to transparent mode here, and I've got ghosting on so I can work inside and start kind of pulling this out to kind of create an interesting look. And I can't see what's intersecting, so I'm going to turn transparency off for a second. Okay, and figure out how this is going to work on the arms. Maybe pull this out this way. So here I'm just basically using the good old move tool, which is probably the brush I use, or the move brush, sorry, which is the brush I use most of the time to do what needs done. Okay, this is kind of looking nice, good. I like these little bulges over here, which could be some sort of kind of dampening mechanism. And here it looks like it's a little bit busy, so let's see if inflate could help with that a little bit. It's a bit too much, so this is something that I should probably erase. So let's go to solo mode here. Yeah, it looks like over here it's kind of getting a little bit busy. So let me isolate this part and see if I can get rid of it. Alright, so now I will go to the smooth brush, turn sculptress mode on, and what's nice about this is that I can, why is this not working? Gave us an error, let's see. So with sculptress mode on, what I'm going to do is try and erase this, but I think the problem is that part of this is hidden. Let's see, now it's still giving me an issue. Alright, well I'll just kind of shrink it down and maybe delete it using ZModeler. So let me do that. Okay, so now I'll just go to the ZModeler brush. I'll make sure sculptress mode is off, and then just go to ZModeler and brush size smaller, and just go to delete and single polys. Or that's not what we want. We want to do delete, and what we want to do is delete a single poly for now. And I'm also going to turn double on so I can see both sides. So let me make sure my UI is there, turn double on. Okay, and so now I want to delete this polygon, this polygon, this one, and this one, and also all of these guys over here. Okay, so now I've basically isolated this part out. And I'm hoping, yes, I do have symmetry on, so this is happening on the other side as well. Okay, so now I've basically isolated that part. And I don't know if I need all this inside part, so I want to see where that's happening. So this is a little bit of a kind of a, you know, perplexus kind of a thing where you have to really see what's going on inside. I think I can cut this off right here as well. So I'm just going to delete these polygons. Like so. And this one. Ghost of Christmas Future says hello. Hi, Ghost of Christmas Future. Alright, so this is where I made that detachment, and then I have to find the other one, which I think was over here. And sometimes, you know, the complexity is good, but if it's inside and if it's conflicting, then it could cause issues. So I think this is where the other area was that I was cutting up. And this is giving me issues with symmetry, so that's easy enough to fix. I'll just go ahead and do a mirror and weld, and then I'll know that I'll have an exact symmetrical piece. Here we go. Okay, so now we should be good. And where are you? Here we go. Okay, so that's gone. And erase this. I'm just basically erasing the circumference. And of course I could do this easily by just using the loop, delete edge loop, but I'll do this for now. Where is it? I keep losing it. There we go. I found it, of course, and then I rotated. Let's do this one more time. And I think what I should do is I should just mask off the parts I don't want to change. So this is all good. I don't want to mess with that. And maybe I'll go ahead and use the mask brush to kind of mask out the areas that I don't want to touch. So I don't really want to do anything to these guys over here. That looks good. I think somewhere in the front was where the issue was, or over here. So this jumbled up part over here is kind of what I want to get rid of. So I'm just going to keep deleting polygons, and hopefully I'm not deleting something I want to keep. And again, I have a duplicate of this, so however bad I mess it up, I can go back and work on the duplicate. And if this keeps giving me issues, then maybe I'll find a different way of doing this too. Maybe I will. So kind of, you know, sometimes you just go down a road that doesn't really work out well. So I'm actually going to not do it this way. I'm going to delete this one, go back to my pristine copy here, duplicate that again, and just for good measure, I'm just going to go ahead and mirror weld it, just to make sure it's symmetrical. And then I'm going to use this other method, and in this other method what I'm going to do is just select a small piece here of the area that I want to delete. So let's see, yeah, it seems to be like a big jumbled mess inside. Maybe I should just leave this alone. Maybe I'll leave it alone, because it looks like it's a lot of work. I mean, and of course another thing I could do is I could build spheres and use booleans to get rid of them too. So like I said earlier, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Hey Vikar, how's it going, man? Good to see you here. And also, Boymint is in here as well. Welcome everybody. And yeah, I mean, there's this cluster inside over here that I want to delete, but I think I'm just going to leave it be. All right, so let's go back and bring everything back out and see what of this that is really showing, and maybe start doing something where I can isolate those pieces. So go back to the move tool here and start pulling these pieces to see what works. So this over here is working really nicely, so I'm going to continue to use that part. Okay, bring these out like that. I like this little piece over here, that's looking good, and maybe not so far out. Right, so that's really good. I don't know what's happening here with the legs. Maybe this goes under this part, like so. And again, I haven't really determined what the material is going to be of this thing. I don't know if it's just going to be like some sort of a hard rubber, or if it's going to be metallic, if it's going to be some sort of a skeletal system. Okay, so these are looking okay. And the arms are looking good. I'm probably going to have to change this out a bit, so I'm going to go to this piece and bring it in a little bit more, and then that basically makes this kind of work this way too. And this is going to be an interesting kind of thing to do here. I have to figure out how this works, because it's pretty complex how we have it in our arm, where two bones kind of flip over each other. So I need to kind of figure out if there's going to be some sort of a hinge here. I think there was a hinge earlier that I said was there, but don't know exactly how to make it work. And again, the hands we're going to do later as well, but not now. Okay, so here I think I've got this looking okay. This whole part over here, I think this is a whole other piece. So this is this leg piece, and I don't know if I want to keep this because it looks like it's really not adding anything to it. So let me hide it. Yeah, I don't know if that piece is even necessary at all. It's not, so we can just get rid of it. So I'm actually just going to duplicate it, or I'm sorry, copy it and paste it into my construction scene, just in case for whatever reason at some point maybe we might need it. Just paste it down here and then go to my main model and delete it so it doesn't clutter it up. One of the things they talked about in the next version of ZBrush at the ZBrush Summit was folders. So when I don't know when the new version of ZBrush is going to be available, but when it is, I'll also organize this stuff here better in folders. so that it's easier to kind of go to specific sections. So hopefully we'll do that. Hopefully it'll happen before the 8 weeks of the stream is over, and we can do that. Okay. All right, so let's look at this front neck part over here. So it looks like this part's coming over here. I think I'm going to make this into some sort of a ribbon, so I'm going to keep that. And then let's take a look at what's inside here. Okay, so this piece is kind of nice. I want to see if I can pull that out. Turn Ghost on and just see if I can bring this piece over here outside the skeletal system. See if I can make that somehow work. Okay, turn transparency off. And the reason why I have polyframe on is I just want to see what I'm doing with the polygons. I don't want to stretch them too far, because eventually, let's see if that's working. Well, it's an interesting kind of design. I don't know how the functionality is going to work though, so I'm kind of not sure if I want to keep it or not. I think I inadvertently clicked on. Let's go back to here. Okay, I think maybe this can come out a bit. Wow, there's a person, Alexi, that was watching my 1-year-old workshop at Gnomon and started Googling my name and then came up with this live stream. Wow, that is very serendipitous, Alexi. One of those cosmic coincidences. All right, I'm trying to figure out where to put this. And again, I'm not really worried about messing up the thickness of the geometry, because I can always delete the inside part and re-dynamesh it. Let's see if this detail here works. Maybe. I kind of want to keep this pristine over here because it's going to rotate, so I don't want anything in its way. So I'm going to kind of tuck this underneath here. And I'm going to try to keep the cables and stuff minimal, because I'm kind of trying to make this into more of a modern thing, like something that maybe Tesla or Apple or a company like that would design. So I'm trying to keep it very streamlined, and want to just keep things to a minimum as far as like loose cables or whatever. This is definitely not happening in a dystopian world. This is happening in a full-on, you know, very awesome future where everything's working great, and maybe we all can have one of these things doing stuff for us. Okay, let's see. Any questions? No questions? Awesome. And Alexi, you should go watch the previous streams. This is the 5th one. So there actually are a bunch before this, 4 of them, of course. This is the 5th one. And then you can kind of catch up. And then we'll be doing this. Oh, I should also mention, I should have mentioned this earlier, but I will definitely mention it at the end. We're going to switch my night out. So this has been going on every other Tuesday. And we are going to change this out to be Friday nights. So it's going to be Friday nights from 7 to 9. Okay, so if you are somebody that is tuning in regularly, you can tune in Friday nights. So the next one I think is going to be, and it'll be on the schedule, the next one's going to be not this Friday, but I think next Friday. And by the end of this thing, I'll have the precise date. And of course, these things are recorded and kept on Pixelogic's Twitch and YouTube channels, so you can always catch it there. I'm trying to see here, trying to give this thing some sort of a butt area. Again, there's no muscles there, so I have to kind of figure out some sort of a shape that makes sense as far as kind of relating to human beings is concerned. But on the other hand, I don't know if there's needs to be any muscles there, because all this is happening with pistons and motors that are inside of the mech. All right, so that's looking good. Let's look at this knee area. So I'm going to switch to this subtool and see what we can do here. I want to see if I can bring in right, looks like we got somebody from China. Says hi, hello. In some more. All right, I think this is looking good, and pretty soon we'll load this into Keyshot, and I need you to let me know how that's going, because Keyshot's kind of a memory, or sorry, not memory, but processor intensive operation, so it might slow down the stream. If it does, then I'll have to make some tweaks to make sure I make this as interactive as possible, so you guys could keep up on the stream and not have it slow down or chatter or stutter or anything like that. Okay, so that's looking good, and then let's start moving into this piece right here and see what that's doing. Okay, so it looks like this is kind of a muscular piece over here, and these are just going to be like some sort of muscles, and I might replace these with kit bash parts later, but for now I just want to make sure they are where they need to be. So tucked in under here. Let's see if I bring this out, if it's going to add any visual interest. Looks like it might be okay. Maybe here like this. No, let's tuck it back in. And again, this doesn't have to exactly work. I mean, this isn't going to be this is basically more like an architectural design, or it's just a concept, and it just has to look like it's going to work, right? It doesn't have to actually work. Engineers will take something like this and maybe tweak it so that it does work, and then I would be working with them to figure out how to get it to work. This looks too much like cables over here. I don't like that, so I'm going to tuck them in. Don't want it to look like cables at all. I just want it to look like really streamlined. Okay, and I think for that part we're good. Right, let me go back to this other part over here. I'm going to give this other part kind of a really harsh color so I can see it. So I'm just going to turn it to yellow and fill object. Good thing ZBrush saves. I usually forget. All right, that's good. Maybe not that harsh. There we go. Okay, so now I can see these parts more in that different color. And let me go back to white, just in case. Okay, so it looks like I've got a bit of that over here. Maybe, have it fill in this part, like so. And let me turn polyframe off. That's good. Okay, so that's looking good. Looks like there's a little bit of it poking out in the throat area over here, a little bit of it poking out this way. And let's look at the back. Maybe I can just kind of inflate these out here to create that type of muscle that's going to go back there, or the illusion of a muscle, I guess. Right, that's looking okay. And then I'm kind of interested to see what I can do with these. I mean, I kind of like them poking out like that. It adds an interesting design element, but it also adds a level of infeasibility. So I'm going to see if I can tuck these in somewhere where they make more sense. Maybe back here somehow. Maybe like that. And let's inflate it up a bit over here to create some sort of thigh situation. I'm going to use H-polish to just kind of break it down, figure out what the planes are. All right, anybody have any questions, or everything looks pretty straightforward? All right, that looks good. And maybe kind of come up to the front over here a little bit too, like so. And again, the polygons are stretching underneath, but I don't really care because I'm probably going to re-dynamesh it or re-zero mesh it anyway. And I think I could kind of extend this out to here. So again, all I'm using is the inflate brush here and inflating this inside piece just to kind of get some interesting looking effects. Okay. That looks okay, and I don't know what's happening here, so we'll have to, it did itself, that's not good. Let's see if I can just use the move brush to push this thing in. A little bit, there it is. Maybe put it more in the center. Maybe I'll just get rid of it altogether. I think this is not really adding anything. Just adding anything over here. Maybe I'll just have a little sliver of it over there, like that. What would be nice is if I had two of these. Let me see if I can figure out a way to do that. So it's interesting stuff happening over here. Look at this thing. All right. This could be a whole alien, like a whole other alien kind of thing that I do later. Okay, go back to what I was doing. All right, pull this back here this way, and then the back. I think I'm just going to have to, let's see if I flatten this thing out, if it'll work. Flatten it out. And then just inflate it this way, and this way, and deflate the middle. Nope. Alright, that's fine. If I really want that design element, I can just add another piece. It doesn't really matter. But make this kind of go inside. Let's see how it looks like on the side. That's good. And there's parts of that that's going down to the feet here, which I don't think I'm going to use, so I'm just going to tuck those in as well. And I don't really need to keep this whole piece. I probably will isolate the pieces that are showing and just use that part. Okay. Right, so let's move it into another piece here, which is this one, and start refining that one. Right, so this piece here is what we were talking about earlier that actually was the starter piece. I'll solo it out. It's this one. And what I want to do with this one, at this point, I don't really need the polygroup, so I'm just going to duplicate it so I kind of have a pristine copy of it as well, just in case I need it. And then I'm just going to polygroup this all in one group, maybe a different one, color, maybe, how about that? And let's see those parts. So here it looks like that's coming out on the bottom over here. And I'm kind of liking these little bulges that it has, but I have to figure out a way to incorporate it into this leg that I made earlier. Maybe have it come out this way. And I have to figure out the transitions of this plate, so we'll have to do some hard surface modeling to figure out how this is connecting later on. And again, knowing how things are constructed, how things work really helps in these scenarios. So I'm just gonna have to figure that out in a little bit, but right now we're just going and figuring out shape. Let's see, did somebody say something? Nope, okay. Here, tuck that in. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make this kind of create an interesting element in the back. Over here, like that's looking okay. Hey Daph, let's see, Dafu Kanzan. Yeah, it's always good to watch, things that are above your level, and before you know it, you'll be there yourself. So thank you for tuning in. Okay, so let's see, this is looking okay. I'm digging the silhouette. Let's go ahead and take a look at this thing in a silhouette mode. That's pretty interesting right there. That would be a nice printout for like some sort of a screen that has the model on it. switch back to standard material here. Right, so I'm kind of not 100% happy about what's happening here, but I think I'll revisit it later. I think the problem again is with these feet, so I'm going to go down to these legs and fix them for now. So that's all the way down here, and I'm going to isolate the feet into their own piece. So here they are. Just make sure there's no other pieces. Nope. And yep, there are. Okay, so I just need to make sure I turn transparency on. So what I want to do is I want to just grab the feet here and not the legs. So let's bring the rest of it up, and I want to make sure I capture these pieces as well. Okay, good, and then just go ahead and split those hidden points into their own subtool, and then here are the feet, and I can work on them individually. And I could also separate out the front and the back. Maybe I'll do that too. Let me turn off perspective here and do this. Okay, and once again, split hidden. And so now I have the front parts of the feet in one subtool and the back parts in another one. Okay, and then I'll adjust these ones accordingly. Let's see. Revenant has a question. What would be the easiest way to get flat panels for the Mech chassis? Finished the model, but not liking some of the platings, so I'm interested in your thoughts. Okay, getting things to be flat is there. I usually use two techniques, and let me switch to kind of a sphere here and make it into a Polymesh 3D, and actually I'm going to initialize this as a polysphere, like so. Okay. So here's kind of a, you can see that each one of these polygons has its own facet. So if I'm going to make something, let's say, I'm going to make a mechanical piece out of this. So let's say I'm going to use the clip brushes. So the clip brushes are really good because they give you, turn symmetry on this thing. Symmetry. So here, if I'm going to, let's say, if I'm going to make, let's say this part flat, what I usually do is I use the this clip rectangle tool and clip part of it, and I don't know why this is happening. Let me turn symmetry off. I think that's why. Okay, and then if I want to, let's say, flatten this part out, that's flat, and notice that there are these edges around it, right? So what I do is after I subdivide this, so if I go ahead and go into geometry and subdivide, right, so you see that edge is kind of there, more or less. If I use the clip brush again, there it is. So the clip brush is really good to kind of create that edge. And of course you need more geometry too, so the more geometry I add, the harsher that edge is going to be. So now I've got a pretty harsh edge over there. And then the other tools to use is H-polish is really good, the H-polish brush. And that's really good to kind of get some hard surface looking shapes. So here kind of, and remember you can push and pull with that. So here I'm just kind of creating a, turn polyframe off. So here I'm going to create kind of a harsher thing that's not what I was doing earlier, which is using the clip brush. So of course I can always use the clip brush to kind of make this a little bit better. But H-polish is really good for getting those hard surfaces. And notice here that I've got this inside part, and I can just use H-polish with the Alt key and get it out. If I divide this, I can get more of that kind of edge. And if I want to do paneling and whatnot, and that's always, I usually use this, Damien Standard is good, but I use this MAH cut, which is really good as well. Some people use orb cracks, so a lot of different ways of doing that. And here I'll make the brush size smaller and maybe increase the intensity a bit. And this is a really good way to do cut lines. And again, notice I'm getting these jaggies because I don't have enough subdivisions. So if I continue to divide, then I would get some really nice edges like so. And remember, the shift key is always good to kind of create straight edges too. So here, I'm going to go this way. I want that to be straight. I hold shift key down and then let go of the shift key, and then that draws a nice straight line for me. And so notice that, lazy mouse works too. So if you go to stroke and let's see, is it under stroke, lazy mouse? You can choose the lazy radius, a bigger one, like you can go to 200 and you can have a nice long line here. So usually I just kind of go back and then go this way, go back, this way, go back, this way, go back, and you can create some really interesting panels. All right, let's see if you responded. Sorry, with software things, why that number was really interesting. Okay, great, Alexi, and yeah, this one looks more like a dent. You're right. So if I wanted to look better, I would basically use the clip here just to kind of get it to look better. And there you go. This looks a little bit sharper now. And again, remember, the thing that's going to delineate it is this edge, right? So you got to really be, careful about getting that edge to be perfect. So now that's looking a little bit better. If I want this to look better too, I can use the clip brush. And remember, you have a bunch of different clip brushes, right? So you have clips rectangle, and there's also clip curve and clip circle. So if I use clip curve, I can get some really interesting shapes too. So if I want this top part to be kind of a curve like this, I just do that. And I think I have a lot of subdivision levels, so it's going to take a little bit of time. And now I've got a really nice kind of top part that looks pretty hard surface as well. And then there's a bunch of other polish brushes too. I think there's Trim Dynamic. Trim Hole is really good if you want to get things like this, for example, where you want to put a screw in and then just go back in with a smaller size and go like this, right? And you can do that kind of stuff. And you can always use alphas too, so you can get some results. That didn't really come out too good. Maybe not move so much, I guess. I'm just going to get it at the angle you want, and then just, it usually kind of adheres to the angle of the screen, right? So here, there you go. That looks good, and then a smaller one that's going to go inwards. And try to move as little as possible. And you get some really interesting things going on. And then another way of getting nice hard surfaces is to use the layer brush. So actually there's even better versions of this brush that you can get that kind of have a better fall off. So you can use the layer brush and an alpha. Let's see if I can find a good one that's hard surface looking. Let me choose the star here, and let's say I want to put a star over here. So, and choose rectangle, and you can kind of create some really interesting hard surface shapes this way as well. And those edges are pretty crisp if you have enough subdivision levels, right? And I think there is one that's more panel looking. Let's see, is there, or am I imagining? Yeah, no, there isn't. I think it's a is it a texture? I think there was a texture that was more panel looking, and you can kind of use that, but maybe it's in a previous version of ZBrush. Let me see if there's, like this one looks hard surfacey a little bit, so we can kind of drag and copy this thing like that, and then maybe a negative version of it inside. Make those concentric. Here we go. Right, so that kind of creates some interesting looking hard surfacey things. So there's a lot of different ways to get a good hard surface look. I think the thing you need to really watch out for is if you add a lot of geometry. So this one has a lot of subdivision levels, and you can see here that there's like some wasted polygons that are on top of themselves, but my result is really good. But what you want to do is also retopologize at some point and get your topology to conform to the hard surfaces that you've added. So, Reverend, what I would recommend you do is, maybe finish your model, kind of finish the primary and secondary shapes, retopologize it, and then you will get better results, hard surface results. And I've gotten some really amazing hard surface results. If you look at my portfolio at kermaco.com, you'll see that I get some amazing hard surface looks with ZBrush. One of the things which I will load at some point, maybe in the stream, is the Mantis Mech, and I made that 100% in ZBrush. Did not retopologize anything. It was just, I did retopologize using Z-Sphere retopology, but did it in ZBrush. So that that Mech is 100% ZBrush Mech. Okay. All right, enough of this. I'm going to delete this thing and let's go back to where we were earlier and pick up from where we left off. How are we doing on time? Wow, we're an hour in already. Yikes. All right, so I think this would be a good time to start thinking about how this looks, which is where I'm going to, oh yeah, we're working on the feet. Let's do that first real quick. So I'm liking the way these heel things are working. I think I don't really want to touch those too much. Turn polyframe on. Okay, so I don't really want to touch these too much. I guess I'm still using the layer brush. I think these are good the way they are. Like this, and I want to rotate these a little bit. This to it. Let's see if this looks any better. Okay, and the thing that I really want to work on is this front part of the feet. So I really want this base to be a little bit fatter. And by the way, these things right here, this thing looks kind of hard surfacey, but realistically this is using dynamic subdivision. So if I look at this object and turn dynamic subdivision off, right, it's just this really simple polygon. So I'm really working with very basic shapes here to get it to be the way I want it to be. And if I turn dynamic on, it adds that kind of little bit of cool hard surfacey look to it. And I just want to expand this part right here and maybe shrink this part. Let's see what that looks like. I always want to see, wow, that didn't look too good. And let me go to the move brush here and move this into place. Doing robotic feet is really interesting. If you look at real robots and how their feet are done, it's usually very interesting to see how it's done. But again, this is going to be something that's going to be going all over different terrains, so we wanted to be able to do that. So I have to kind of spend a little bit of time here getting these to be the way I want them to be. And then once I'm done with this, we'll jump into Keyshot and do a little bit of look dev today, because that's usually kind of my workflow, is when I get to a point where something is looking good, I start to wonder, okay, well, what is this going to look like when it's rendered? And I don't want to wait until I'm done with it and spend all the time to see if it's going to look okay or not. All right, so ZBrush is going to do another save here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to clip this bottom part so it's flat. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Maybe move this down like so. And move this down like so. Alright, I'm really liking the way this is kind of doing this over here. This kind of shape change over here is really cool, how it's going in. Alright, and I kind of was looking at this earlier and didn't really like it, so I'm going to go in and change it. And also this, so. All right. Okay, so for now I think I'm okay, and one thing I'm going to do here is just go ahead and pop some colors onto here, just so that I can, when it goes into Keyshot, it has some different polygroups to it. So here I'm going to go ahead and pick, let me do this first, and pick, let's say red, or let's pick orange, fill this part with orange, maybe pick this part right here. With orange as well, and fill this with orange, this one too, and this top part. And this top part, I'm actually, this is just a placeholder. This was just a kit bash part that I made look totally different. So it's going to probably have to be redone, or I have to do some work in it. And the inside part, I think everything else looks good. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn Keyshot on as a renderer. And let me bring Keyshot up and make sure that it is not paused. That's what I wanted. Where is Keyshot? There it is. Okay, so I unpause Keyshot and go back to ZBrush. And let's go ahead and render this thing. So here's where I need your feedback. I need you to let me know if this is going to slow it down at all in Keyshot or not. Where did Keyshot go? Here it is. So there's our model in Keyshot. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put it on performance mode for now and try some different materials. Right, so here's my model with all of the different pieces, and let's try some different looks. So I'm going to go ahead and pick like a darker color for this part over here, and actually I'm going to turn performance mode off, and you guys let me know if this is slowing down the stream at all. Okay, so I'm just going to move this around a little bit, and if you can tell me if this is slowing down or speeding up the stream, if I'm transmitting well or not. I'll wait for you to okay, it's fine for me. Okay, nice. Alright, so if it's good, I'm just going to continue on. So here I'm just choosing some plastic, some hard plastic pieces, and just kind of getting some idea of what this is going to look like. So here, maybe I'll choose white for this part here, or maybe I'll choose black for this part, and maybe choose a white for here. That looks okay, maybe gray. Right, so now I'm actually seeing what this thing is going to look like if I apply color to it, and if I'm going to like how it's looking, and if I'm going to need to make any changes. And let's pick a red for this inside part and see what this looks like. Okay, so Pedro, thanks for letting me know, and Hoba, or Hobo, I guess, I don't know how you say your name. Thanks for letting me know. Okay, let's see, is this kind of seeing through? No. And I'm not really worried about how this looks right now, because when I'm done with it, it's going to look pretty detailed. Alright, so this is not bad. And then now that I'm kind of okay with the general shape of it, what I'll do here is maybe start looking at different lighting scenarios. So let me go into my environments here, which they're going to take a few seconds to load up. This is good for now. And what I usually do is I just go in and pick, like, let's say one of these guys right here, and that creates kind of a darker look, going to a lighter look, and then let's go in here and add a little bit of extra lights. So I'm just going to add a light here, like so. I don't know why it picked this kind of shading here. I'm just gonna choose let's see how this looks. Every once in a while something comes up and you have to try it out. I wonder if there's a way I can just choose just a regular color. Maybe I'm not really going to care about this gradient. So here I'm going to choose, for this color, I'm going to choose here we go. For that color I'm just going to choose, let's say, white, and I think that'll do. And I'm just going to move this around, kind of see if things are interesting. This is still too lit up for me, and I'm just kind of looking for shapes. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a screen here that's all black. So there's nothing lighting this up, and then I'll go ahead and add my own pins. So here's one. And again, we have that kind of, I just want a white pin and white over here as well. Okay, and that's good. Okay, and what we want to do is maybe double the brightness of this thing. Let's go to 5. And I'm just going to move this pin around and start looking at my model. And here it's kind of lighting up the back. I'm trying to just kind of see what specular highlights would look like. It's not a good place for it. So here, if like lights were going on the model, I'd kind of want to see what that is going to look like. Right, that's looking okay. And once I'm happy with it, I'll just regenerate that HDR. Okay, and then just like start moving the model around. So I'm kind of looking at it like in dark areas, silhouetted areas, to see if there's any part of it that really sticks out and doesn't look good. And so far I think I'm happy with what I have. And so let's try some different HDRs. Let's see what it looks like outside. So here, this is what it would look like if it was in an outside scenario. It's not bad. And how about over here, this factory setting, alleyway. Okay, and then just throw a sun and sky in there, see what that looks like as well. And I'm going to rotate this a bit. Kind of looks okay. And then let's see, pick a kind of a night type of view. And here I'm just basically looking at different views, maybe try some different camera angles. Let's try 35mm, see what that looks like. It's okay. And also I want to see how many, if I have a bunch of these, what they would look like. So I'm just going to select this, and let's do a here's the thing that does a bunch of them. Make pattern. Let's make a pattern with these. And so what we're going to do is maybe add about 10 of these guys, and maybe 10 this way as well. The whole army of them, maybe not Y, or maybe Z. Okay, so that's 1 this way and 10 this way. Alright, so now we got a whole army of these things, and let's see what they look like. Let's make them closer to each other. So, and let's have a little bit of scattering, just like make them uniform. Okay, and that's looking okay. How's all this coming with the streaming? Is it okay? Is it coming out all right? Right, let's try and see what this looks like in sunset setting. Rotate this around. There we go. This is a good read right here when I'm just kind of, it's on the side and it's creating some specular on all the different objects. Yeah, so far I think I'm liking this okay. Let's see what it looks like inside. So here is another setting. Maybe I don't need the instances. Let me see if I can go get rid of those. Yeesh. Added a whole bunch of these models. I don't need all of these. Yes, I am sure. This might not have been a good idea, but let's see. yeah, that's probably how they did Clone Wars. They probably created one stormtrooper and had a bunch of different motions and then added them. I think I might have killed Keyshot here, so... oh no, here we go. Lovely. Alright, and let's move this into a different area. Over here. It kind of looks really good inside. In an internal setting, it looks great. So I'm liking how this is looking inside here. And let's try one more interior, and then we'll go back and start. Okay, here we go. This is a nice setting for it. And maybe make this environment a little bit smaller. Let's go to 10. It's not that good. And all right, yeah, in an interior setting it looks good too. So I think I'm pretty happy with the design so far. I can go ahead and close Keyshot down, discard all this, and go back to working with what we had before. All right, so what to do next here is, oh, you know what? I'm gonna launch Keyshot again and send this out to Keyshot because I want to see how this little ribcage or this little lung area here is going to look. So if you don't mind bearing with me here for a second. Luckily the Keyshot bridge makes this pretty fast, so here we are again. And the only reason why I did this whole thing is because I want to see how this looks over here. And the reason why I didn't really pay attention to it is because it was the same color, so let me add a different material to it. Maybe this blue. That's horrible. Let's say lighter gray. And let's see how that looks. It looks okay. I was kind of worried that it was going to be too thin. It kind of is too thin. I can't see it from here. Maybe I'll have to thicken it up a bit. But it's a neat design element, and I wonder if I can make it even bigger and add more to it. So this is a kind of a good place to see this type of stuff, is to see if it's going to be effective. So here, if I was looking at it this way, maybe that looks good, but if I had it small, it's almost invisible. And it is an interesting design element, so I'm going to make it work. Another interesting thing that I just noticed here is that this makes a face, right? So here's a mouth, 2 eyes, nose. It kind of looks like a skull over here, and I might play around with that idea to have it be some sort of a logo or something, but this kind of stuff brings it out. Okay, good. All right, so I might need to make this a little bit bigger and give it a little bit more girth, make each one of these a little bit thicker, easy enough to do in ZBrush. So let's jump out of Keyshot again and get back into ZBrush. Maybe I'll do that part now or do it later. Let's see. Isolate this part right here. And what I could do is, let's see if deformation and inflate works. And I'm going to just type in numbers here. That makes it thicker. That's better. And then also I'm going to move it down maybe over to here. This thing have subdivision levels. Nope. So again, this is really low res geo that I'm kind of manipulating, and I kind of like this part, so I want it to be outside, but the rest of it is inside. And then this individual strand, if I want to make it fatter and not everybody else, I can just use the inflate brush to just make this part right here fatter, like so. Move this out, so maybe this attaches to something over here, and that looks okay, and that looks much better. And if I look at it from a distance, it's kind of more visible, and I don't want it to really fight this area over here, so I might need to put different pieces and parts in there to just kind of make that work. And while I'm at it, I'm not liking this over here, so I'm going to push it in, push this out, and go back to here and use that to take up that part in the back. All right, so there's some really interesting pieces here that I want to bring out. So let me see if I can. This is great because I mean it's just like in ZBrush to do these kinds of things. It's just such a joy. And you just have to not, you know, make sure you try to keep this. And this is probably made of some sort of, you know, metal, you know, bendy metal piece, or maybe there's filament in here and the outside part is kind of rubber. Because again, these are going to be around humans, so we don't want really a lot of sharp edges to create unhappy accidents, I guess. All right, so that looks okay. All right, so let me make sure that everything else is okay. So let's see if I can do anything with this face area that we talked about earlier. Yeah, take a swig of tea here. So if you have any questions, ask away. Trying to get my camera to align. There we go. All right, back to ZBrush. Let's see if I can make this smile kind of be more expressive. And I have to figure out what to put in here. Like this can't remain empty. So let's see if I move it back maybe. So that's good. And let me inflate this top part. I don't know what's going on here. And again, if I really like what's going on with this looks too much like a skull. I think it's, at this point I'm not really getting that happy with it. And if I like this part but I don't want to use this existing geometry, I can just rebuild this whole thing, just the different pieces. It's easy enough. I can just use ZModeler and do it. So I'm going to try and see if I can make this look less like a face. All right. Okay, so now that I'm good with this, I think I'm going to tackle this part some more and see. I like this kind of shape where this part is sticking out. I might even exaggerate it a bit more, like so. Maybe this top part, try and get kind of an interesting head shape. And maybe expand these out. And I have to figure out like what kind of cameras and sensors are going to be in here. So obviously this is a good place to put a couple cameras. And then maybe a couple of cameras in the back. So the head is basically going to be its vision sensor hub. So this top part is going to be basically where all of its eyes are. But that doesn't mean it can't have eyes anywhere else. I was just looking at a test line. There are cameras on that thing all over the place. And let's look at this inside part over here. Let's see if I can tweak that to get interesting head shape. I'm really liking what this is doing over here. This part, these wiry parts are doing over here for the head shape. Let's kind of get a jaw shape kind of happening. And then maybe move these ones out a bit. Align them to one of them. These are pretty tweaked out inside. I might have to replace them later on, which is fine. They're just a kit bash part. I might put thicker ones in there too. Let me see if I can make that happen. Right, so here, this is kind of an interesting trick. If you have the gizmo, if you want to align it to something, you just press Alt and click on it, and then click on the other. So I clicked on one vertex, this one, and then this vertex. So I'll do it with this one here, like that. And now this, the Y, the green line, is aligned directly with that. And here, if I want to snap it to the center point here, so I'll just do this. Actually, I can just snap it exactly to the center point like that. There we go. Okay, so now it's on the center point, and then I can make this a little bit thicker like that. And it's kind of losing its circular shape, but again, this is just a placeholder. And I'm trying to see if that looks better, and it kind of does. It looks better when it's thicker. And again, now I'm just kind of using this sculpting ability to see if, you know, I can get an interesting shape from this. Hey, hairy lip. Hello. Okay, got some new people coming on. Welcome aboard, and if you're just joining us, we've been developing this thing for over, this is the 5th week. So we do 2 hours every, I do 2 hours every other Tuesday, which is this is going to be the last Tuesday, and we're going to move it over to Fridays from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay. All right, so that's looking okay. I like the way it's looking from the top too. Start working some more on this part of the head. And I don't want it to fight with the part in the bottom, so I have to find an interesting shape for it. And again, this is a kit bash part that I brought in. It looks nothing like when it first came in. It had wires and cables and other parts to it, and now I'm just basically completely changing it out to be something completely else. And all I'm doing here is looking for a shape, and once I find it, I'll probably remodel this thing from scratch with ZModeler, and I might do that tonight. Let's see how we're doing that time. We have time. Okay, I don't know if I want this to stick out that much. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and go to this piece over here, and this is something that we kind of set into place a while back, but I think I could use a little bit bigger shoulders here. Okay, you must play with the new ZBrush. How's the new Z-Mesher? Hope this will be in it for auto retopology. March 5th is the day, so Yetkin March 5th, log in to ZBrush Live, and Pixelogic will be showing you all the amazing new stuff in the new ZBrush. So you can definitely expect great things from them, because every time they come out with a new version, it has some miraculously amazing stuff for it. I know for sure that there are going to be folders, because they talked about that at the ZBrush Summit. And I am sure that it is going to have cameras, because they also talked about that in the ZBrush Summit. And if you look at the image that is on ZBrush Central, it kind of gives you some hints about what's coming. So all I can say is that it's amazing to be using ZBrush in this day and age. It's like such an amazing tool. Okay, so there's a little bit of clashing going on here on top, so I have to figure out how to fix that. And again, when this folds over, so when he goes into quadruped mode, and let me see if I have that. When he goes into quadruped mode, like this, notice that this shoulder part right here, this part that we're working on, kind of is going to go to the side like this. So it's going to, you know, the scapula is going to kind of go around and be this way, like kind of like an animal's scapula is. And I have to kind of figure out that I have to make that work, because eventually I am going to pose this thing in its quadruped form as well. Let me go back to this. Right, this piece here is going to be, this whole big piece over here is going to be this piece right here when it's in quadruped mode. Alright, so it looks like there's a lot of unnecessary detail over here that I don't really need, so I can hide it. Let me just click on this part to select it. And maybe this part right here, I don't need that much detail. And with hard surface, it's always a battle of, you know, how to give your eyes a place to rest versus throwing in some really interesting detailed parts. It's looking a little bit better. I'm still not 100% happy with it, but it's definitely better than before. And then this area here looks a little lackluster, so I'm going to modify this. Again, these are just, you know, really simple shapes that I'm pushing and pulling on. These big kind of mechanical pieces, and I'm not really adding any more detail to it because I want them to still look hard surfacey, and that's another really good hard surface trick, is that if you just work with low poly for as much as you can, low poly inherently has hard edges, right? So these edges are all hard edges. The reason why they look a little bit softer is because I've got dynamic subdivision on. Okay, so let's see, there is any questions? Right, looks like no big questions, so we'll just continue on here. Right, that looks way too much. Just kind of getting rid of some of the other area that I had. I want this top part to be bigger, but I want this bottom part not to be as big. Right, so when the scapula comes down, then this will kind of be the other part. And then let's see, what about this part right here? And again, notice I'm always working on that primary shape, getting it to look right. I'm always working on that bigger shape just to make sure that whatever details I've added, that it's still working with them. Okay, so let's turn transparency off. So now that we made some changes, let's see, legs are looking okay. So let's get it from the back. I definitely need a bit more girth here. Okay, so I could choose to bring this metal piece out, or I can choose to bring this inside piece out, which is I think what I'm going to opt to try first. So I'm going to go for this inside piece and bring this out and back and see if I can get like some interesting shape in the back here to work. And inflate this. And move it forward. I don't know if you folks can hear it, but there's a helicopter like right above where I'm at. It's pretty loud. All right. I'm going to try something new here to see if this creates a more interesting shape than what I had before. Tuck it in over here like so, and see. Touch this with inflate. See how that looks. Okay, so I think at this point I'm again at a point where I can use to go into Keyshot and see how all these new additions that I added and changes that I made, how they look. So let's shoot this back over to Keyshot and see what happens. Makes it look menacing over here the way the eyes are, so I don't want this to look like a menacing thing. Maybe it has a menacing mode for when it's in a war robot, but if something like this comes to rescue you and it's looking like this, I'd be a little afraid. Notice here that this kind of the bending and stretching that I did makes this look less hard surfacey, but I can easily replace those later. And this is kind of starting to look more like a dragon's head, and I want to make some changes in ZBrush. And notice I might not have seen all these details had I just stayed in ZBrush, so it's always good to go into Keyshot and check out the changes that you made. I think this back part is okay, it's working okay. Because I'm thinking if this is going to be, you know, in the same world as humans are, it's going to sit down, and it doesn't want to, you know, scratch chairs and seats with this hard metal. So you kind of have to have kind of softer parts over here, maybe softer parts for the elbows. So we'll kind of deal with those details later on. All right. Okay. All right, I'm going to pause this, keep Keyshot on, so I don't have to wait for it to load. And then let's go back and take a look at some of the things we observed. So the first thing I want to do is take that eye and make it look a little bit friendlier by not having that scorny looking thing. Okay. Any other questions, folks? I know this might be advanced for some of you, but I'm sure some of you might have some questions. So here, let me turn perspective is off. And sometimes I use the clip brushes to get like a good A-line on top. Let's see what that would look like. That looks a little bit less menacing. Why would a robot sit in a chair? Well, let's say it's on a helicopter, right? In a helicopter, unless you're going to hang it off the helicopter, it's got to sit somewhere, right? So these things are going to exist with humans, so they kind of have to work with human things around. And maybe it needs to sit down because a human needs to fix something in it, who knows? But it's a good thing to wonder about, right? I don't remember what movie it was in, but the robot in it said that it looks the way it does so that humans are not intimidated or scared by it. So that's why it tries to look as human as possible. I think it was in Prometheus or maybe Alien, the new Alien movie. I don't remember. Okay. All right, so that's looking a little bit better. I don't know if it's going to look menacing, but we'll find out. And again, this is going to be camera holes over here, and yeah, driving a car, that's a good one. Operating in a world designed for humans, that's right. oil change, I appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, it's so kind of compelling for me to kind of make this be like that. Let's see if that works at all. No, kind of like that streamlined look. Actually, what I can do is duplicate it and then have one version that's like this, and then I can decide later. I can load both of them into Keyshot, see which one works better. Right, so there's model A, and then there's model B right here. Okay, so I think I'm going to shoot this over to Keyshot one more time, so let me make sure that it's not paused. And BPR. And this is the new look. And does it look menacing? It still looks a little menacing. It still looks like it's going to attack you or something like that. We need to do a little bit more work there. So I'm going to pause this, go back to ZBrush. I think it's a straight line on top that's really doing it. Have it be more like this. Alright, let's see if that makes it any better. Unpause, BPR. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Alright, I think we're just going to go with that and then maybe figure it out later. So let me pause this and go back to ZBrush. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to actually model this thing from scratch. So I'm going to use ZModeler for that, and I'll just insert under here, insert a Polymesh 3D, initialize it as a 1 by 1 by 1 cube, and position it to where that head is. And at this point, I want to determine, still got this orange color, let's go shift back to white. I want to determine the different divisions I'll need, so I'll definitely need one in the middle, so I'm going to use mirror and weld to get that. That's my middle line, and then make this longer like so. So basically what we're doing is we're modeling something similar to what's there from scratch. I think that would be good for you to watch because ZModeler is one of the features in ZBrush that I really like, and you can do some amazing stuff with it. Okay, I'm just kind of creating just a bounding box shape for that top part of the head. Okay, that's good. And now let's just go into ZModeler and add some let me just make sure I'm not deleting anything, so do nothing for that. And then for edges, let's go ahead and insert some edge loops. I'm going to turn this to multiple and one. This is an interesting trick where if you want to put an edge loop in the middle of something, if you just have single edge loop, you can just pop in an edge loop and put it anywhere, which is useful, right? So here I can kind of put one here. Put one here, but if I want to put one right exactly in the middle of this segment over here, the way to do it is you go to multiple edge loops and then you specify your resolution to be 1, and you don't need interactive resolution, turn that off. And so now when I place an edge loop, it's going to be exactly in the middle of where I click, right? So super useful thing to know. And when I'm teaching my class, usually a student somewhere will ask that question. We put an edge loop over here, and I think this is enough to just kind of get that basic shape. And then I'm just going to use the clip brush to get it to be more of the shape underneath. So there's that. and then there is do this one more time. Get that going. One of the things that is really useful in ZBrush is to know how to manipulate the Shift and Alt and Control keys. It's like if you're a pianist, you have to know certain keys. And with ZBrush, it's the Alt, Control, and Shift keys. Alright, so now I kind of have a shape that looks pretty much like what we had before. Really, again, I'm going to keep it as low poly as I can, and maybe let's see here, maybe put another edge loop over here. So another way to add edge loops, which is really nice, is to use the slice capability. Is it slice? Yeah, slice curve. And with slice curve, you can just kind of say I want an edge loop right here, and that's another way to add an edge loop. Okay, so now I think I've got enough edge loops, so I just need to do some poly grouping. Maybe add one more edge loop over here. Like so, okay, and then go to the move brush and make sure symmetry is on, it is, and just move this into place. Like so. That's looking like a good way to have that outside part be. Hang on, I've got some questions. What's this guy's function? Is he a soldier, a worker, etc.? KB is asking about what this does, and good question, and that's always good to know, right? And the function of this thing is that it's a multi-purpose robot. So it's going to be a robot that's built, like, let's say by Boston Dynamics, kind of would be making these types of robots, or maybe one day Apple would make them, and then you can use them for anything. So we're going to actually have multi-purpose ones, and you know, we're looking at, you know, mainly things that humans have difficulty doing. So it's going to be kind of a helper robot, and you know, maybe there are some that kind of are emergency responder type of robots. Of course, you know, there might be military ones as well. So we're trying to make something that's more general use. And then we'll start to kind of, you know, choose a specific purpose for it. Okay, so now I want to pull out this eye part. And to do that, I'm just going to kind of solo this out. And go to ZModeler brush again and just use the Shift, the Alt, is it the Control key? No. The Alt key, but why can't I do it? Because I'm in insert edge loop mode. Let's just do it this way. I'm going to polygroup a single poly, so polygroup this one, this one, this one, this one, and we're going to QMesh a polygroup island and pull this out like so, bring everything back, and this is going to be that eye part that I'm bringing out like so, and then I'm going to use the clip brushes to get this to align correctly, like so. Okay. Alright, so now I've got the basic shape for it, and then I can start adding some of the details. I'm looking inside to see the other parts. So here it looks like the nostril parts are over here, and I can maybe do the exact same thing that I had before, or I can make some variations of it as well, because I know that with the general shape that I want from the part I pasted in, but I also might want to maybe change things out a bit. Let's see, question Cool. The reason I asked is because I had no idea where you could have, which is, yeah, a Swiss Army knife arm, that's right. So we're kind of thinking about that too. We're going to work on the hands a little bit. I think I've got maybe about 15 minutes. Maybe I'll go into that. But yeah, it basically, it has replaceable parts. So the hands come off and then you can put in different hands. This could be a construction robot, so it could have maybe a drill or a saw or something like that for its hand. Or it could have like a Swiss Army knife-like thing where basically you can, it can swap out between several tools. Sure. I mean, it's about time we had things like that, right? I mean, it seems like technology is moving really fast, and there are definitely certain jobs where human beings are at risk, and having a robot like this would be great. And the interesting thing becomes, will it be taking a human's job, or do you figure out a way to have humans also be part of this so they can, have a way to still continue to be able to make a living. Don't mean to get into human factors here, but it's always an interesting thing that comes up with robots is, are they going to replace us? And the answer is hopefully no. But they definitely will augment things and make our lives better. Okay, so here let's go ahead and add a couple more edge loops, maybe this way, like that. And maybe one over here, like so. And then I'm just going to use the QMesh single poly to see if I can bring this down a bit more. QMesh is, by the way, if you haven't used QMesh, it's one of those miracle capabilities and that ZBrush has. Maybe do this and that. Oop, it's better before. So now I've kind of created an area for those eyes to come through. So I can push this one down a bit more. Use the move tool here, bring this down. And move these back. This is the kind of stuff that I used to do in Maya. It used to take forever, and now it's like just like sculpting, you can just get so much done so much faster. It's a paradigm shift for sure. When I teach a Maya course and I teach a ZBrush course. And it's interesting, I have students that hate Maya, I have students that love ZBrush, and I have students that like both of them. And I have students that still want to do 2D, so the good news is that if they're good artists, they can use whatever tool. But for me, I think being able to do things like this in ZBrush is just a gift. All right, let's see, we're about 46, so we're about 15 minutes out, and this is a good time to maybe take some last questions, and then maybe I'll start working on some hands. Okay. Yeah, KB, that's a really good point. You're definitely right. I think that, like I see these hard surface things, and it looks like it's a box, and it's got like every single possible hole, and like it's got 20-30 different features on the surface. And I always wonder, like, what's the function? Why is this an air vent? Why are there so many details on this box? Or, why do you need a box that has so much detail on it? I mean, yes, you're flexing your hard surface muscle, but why do you need all those different things? And just a little bit of thought will really help you figure out the function of it and figure out whether it's something that is useful or not. So let me see, I'm going to try one more thing here and see if this feature looks good. And I think it does. So I think I'm going to leave the head there. Maybe we'll work on it a little bit some next time. But let me go ahead and do a quick save here on this. And this would be a good chance for me to take a look at the silhouette. And it looks like it's kind of pointing down a little bit too much over here. Maybe, let's see, where can I can pull that shape out. So take this out of ghost mode here, click on this. And you can see I'm always working on that primary form. I'm always trying to make that primary form work better. Because if that's not working, then nothing else will work. So here I'm just kind of giving it a little bit more of a kind of a curve over here because it looked like it was just wedging in. So that's making it look a little bit better. And that's good. Let's go ahead and start thinking about hands. So one of the ways I can do hands is, of course, using Z-spheres, and Z-spheres are super useful. So what I'm going to do here is just go in and just stick it right here under the hands. So I'm just going to insert a Z-sphere like so, and I'm just going to work on one hand first. So let's scale that Z-sphere down, and I like scaling Z-spheres here. Size, make it smaller. I don't have Z-sphere selected, or do I? I do have it selected. Okay, so why isn't it making it smaller? All right, size, smaller, here we go. Okay, so maybe about that size. And I'm going to solo it because I don't need the rest of everything else. And bring this to a smaller size, and let's say start out with one finger. Right, so it's too much. Let's move that back. Move up this way. Go back to draw another Z-sphere, move that further forward. Okay, and then go in and draw another one, and let's see if I can turn symmetry on here, so we get two. And again, I don't really need this to be a human looking finger, so you usually need about 3 fingers to be able to grab something. So I'm going to try and see if I can find an interesting shape. How are we doing on time? Oh, we got 10 minutes. It's a lifetime. I can do a lot in 10 minutes. I'll do this. W, move, oops. Move this down like so. Alright, that's looking interesting. I kind of like what I have here, but I wish there was 3 of them. So I'm going to try and do that. Try and match this as much as I can. So start that way, about this size. Move them over to here. Scale them down. Them up and draw another copy. Oops. Right, so let's say that I'm going to design maybe a better arm or better hand than Evolution has for us. Like I even can. But you never know. It might make sense. Give another 3,000. Let's see. Just, okay, here we go. Move these out, and then move these out like this. Split longer. Kind of a claw-like hand. But maybe this will work. And maybe I can make these a bit thicker so they look like thumbs. And it's always good to kind of go and make sure to see what this looks like as an adaptive skin. So turn all the density down, press A. Yeah, the geometry is looking okay. I think I might be able to add some knuckles here. So let's go back. Maybe add knuckle here. And the other thing is these guys look like they're thinner than that, which is not working. You always want to go thick to thin. And I'm assuming these are kind of like the thumbs. And let's do this. Alright, so let's say this is one type of hand you can get for this thing. Right. Right, we do this. It's going to be hard to make that inside one like it's completely covered. Maybe I should do that first. Let's try and make this one bigger. There we go. That looks better. Now that I made the hand so big, it's making the fingers look too small, but that's okay. Alright, so let's say this is kind of the finger layout that one hand would have, and I can always make these a little bit bigger, like so, and possibly these ones a little bit bigger too. And let's go to adaptive skin here. That's not looking too shabby, and for this front one, I want to add yet another part over here, and maybe, why not with these ones too? Oops. Okay, this is kind of looking exactly the way I envisioned it, so I think this is good enough. So let's go ahead and start. Maybe this is too thin here. I'm going to have to change that a little bit. And so what's really nice about ZBrush is like I'm designing now, right? So in Maya, it's kind of not easy to do this kind of design work so quickly. I mean, I do design some things in Maya as well, but this is really fast. All right, one more time. Okay, this is looking good. Yep. All right, so let's say this is kind of what I want to go with. I'm kind of, geez, I'm still not happy with these thumbs. I think they still need to be a bit bigger, so I'm going to scale them up. Move them up like so. I'm going to scale the base up too, and I think we're getting pretty close to time. So please ask some last questions that you have, and then I just want to make sure that I make the announcement that this is going to continue not this Friday, but I think next Friday. You can look at the schedule on ZBrush Live, so let me do that right now. ZBrush Live. And let me see if they have it on there already. Okay, ZBrush Live. presenters. By the way, I should also do a shout out to a lot of great presenters here. Shane Olson, Michael Pavlovich. I know a lot of these people in person, and they do amazing work. Thomas, Tony, Joseph Drust. I don't know if he's doing any. Paul's are usually good. Alina's are good. Stevens are good. Solomon, of course. So a lot of these folks have great streams that you can join in on, and also if you go to mine over here, it should have so see the I guess they haven't changed the dates. Let's see if it's in the schedule. Right, so they have one for February, and let's see. Okay, so I'm March 22nd is the next one I'm on. Nope, March 8th. Take that back. So March 8th is my next one. It's on Friday from 7 to 9, so tune in for that one. I think this is the February 26th one today. Okay, so next time we'll continue working on this hand some more, and start to finish up some of the pieces and start rendering it and kind of creating our compositions. So we have about 3 more weeks to go for this project, and hopefully we'll get done in that time. I'm hoping that we will. And I want to thank all of you for joining us, and if you don't have any last questions, I will bid you all a good night, and until next time.